Here we go, going into Norfolk, Virginia. This is a short film, mainly because I didn't stop here. I just kept going. I wanted to get to the Chesapeake Bay uh, so that I could take off first thing in the morning because wasn't sure what I was going to deal with once I got there. So I decided to just keep going and go past Norfolk. These are, as you can see, these bridges here are the bridges that actually go up when a vessel is coming through. And they go up pretty high, and then the ship goes through, and then they come back down. And they seem to have several of them here in Norfolk, I noticed. Uh, but one thing they do have here is a lot of Navy ships. There were tons of them all over the place. I would imagine they're probably, this must be the area where they do their maintenance whenever they need to come in for their regular maintenance and whatever has to be done to these ships. And there were plenty of them. They were all over the place. And you could see that they were all in different stages of getting overdone, getting painted, getting retrofitted, I guess, and get them ready to go back out into service. Uh, it's pretty amazing uh, how many ships there are actually here. Uh, and I know there's still a lot more ships out there somewhere. The Navy doesn't tell you where all their ships are. That's just something they don't do, obviously, because they don't want somebody knowing, where all exactly what point or where or how many ships are out there right now. Uh, Here's another one of those bridges that I was telling you about. This one here happens to be a railroad bridge. So they keep it up most of the time, and they only bring it down whenever there's a train going by. Uh, if you see one that has the when it's down, it's normally cars are going by there. So, but this one here, I guess the trains don't come by that often. So they went ahead and open it up and leave it open. And you can see it's up pretty high. And that's what allows the big ships to come in and out. If you look under past the other bridge there, the high bridge, right past that is another bridge just like this one, and that too is up high. So I would imagine that again is another railroad bridge crossing. Uh, Obviously, if it was for cars, it wouldn't be up like that because there'd be too much traffic jams and everything else to keep it like that for a long period of time. But it was kind of surprising to see they got quite a bit of them here uh, that are like this. And you can see there in the foreground, there's uh, oop, lost my train of thought here. Yeah, you can see Norfolk there in the background. There was a little place where you could tie up for about 2 3 hours, 4 hours, I think they said was the max, at no charge. And then you could go ahead and get off and walk around and stuff. But because I was trying to get to the point where the Chesapeake Bay was going to start, which is on the other side of Norfolk, I wanted to make sure I got to that before I call it the day. Mainly because I was going to check the weather, see what kind of weather it is, and try to get more information. I know Chesapeake is a very large body of water, so it's one of those you have to pretty much check your weather and check the winds, check your currents, and make sure that it's safe to go ahead and start the going. I didn't realize how long it was going to take me to do the crossing because I'm not just going across the Chesapeake Bay. I'm actually going from one end all the way to the other end, which makes it very, very long. There was some areas once I got there that I needed to realize, well, should I go ahead and take off and cross or not? Or should I just wait? Uh, what I decided to do is the way the intercoastal shows the uh, the route, it shows going right smack in the middle of Chesapeake Bay. I elected not to do that. I elected to go ahead and go on one side of it to keep close to the coastline in case in the event that I had to, the weather got bad and I had to go in. But here we are going through again Norfolk, Virginia, and you can see there's tons of these ships on both sides, and they all seem to be working on them and doing something to them. And I'm sure they come in here for their maintenance. Uh, I actually know someone that's here in Norfolk. He's I'm not sure what his rank is. I know he's an officer and he's been promoted quite a few times, so he's up there in rank. And he's always talking about these ships here. So uh, he's he's been pretty good as far as staying. He's a Navy man and he's a career man, so he's a nice kid. Anyway, you can see we're getting closer there to the town Norfolk there. And again, if you look both sides, there's ships all over the place where they're getting serviced. Uh, there's not really a whole lot to these things, except if you look on each side, there's these little boats running around. Those are security boats. You're not allowed to come close to these big ships. If you start heading toward one of these ships here, somebody's gonna greet you. And if you've seen one of these security boats, I wasn't close enough to see what it looked like or what it was, but if I had to take a guess at what was in front of one of those things, it looked like it was a machine gun. So, but I didn't get close enough to actually tell that it was a machine gun or not. But it kind of looked. That's what it looked like. And I'm sure that they don't allow anybody to even come close to these big ships. And they have these security boats all over the place. Wherever you see Navy boats or Navy ships, either in the yard or just tied up somewhere in the docks, you'll see these small little boats that run around up and down wherever these ships are, and they kind of, I guess, guard the vessels so that no one can get close enough or get close to them. I'm sure security reasons, they don't allow you to come close, or it's hard for them to stop you from filming, obviously, because as I'm filming this as I'm going by there, and there's not, they don't really say anything about, not filming or quick, don't be taking pictures. But anyway, you can see on the right hand side there's a ton more ships. They're getting repaired, and soon we'll be getting into right past Norfolk, Virginia, and we should be getting close to Chesapeake Bay, which is the kind of like the deadline I want to have to do today. I want to at least get to the point where tomorrow morning I start off heading up the Chesapeake Bay and going all the way up through there. I've heard some stories about it. I know it kind of took me by surprise because it was a lot bigger area than I thought it was. On a map, it looks like, okay, well, there's water and then there's land all around it. It's a bay. What's the big deal? Well, when I was on one side of the coast, you couldn't even see land on the opposite side of that. That's how big this thing was. But anyway, I'll show you some of the films that I took on that. and pretty amazing. Anyway, here we are once again. And the reason I really didn't do a whole lot here is because there's really nothing to do here because there's so many ships, and it's mainly you'll see one Navy ship after another Navy ship tied up. Uh, so and you can't get close to them. So there's really not a whole lot you can do except keep going. And I went all the way, right past through downtown and everything. I did have to go ahead and stop off and pick up at least one tank of fuel. I was already on empty on one tank, and I was running down almost halfway down my second tank. So I knew I was going to have to pick up some more fuel anyway. So I started, while I was here, I started looking at different places. And come find out that the marinas here don't carry non-ethanol fuel. All they carried was ethanol fuel. And no matter, I went to 3 different marinas, and all 3 of them, none of them had non-ethanol fuel. Uh, I don't know how ethanol fuel is going to react to the motor at the outboard, but I was always told never don't use ethanol fuel in there. I know at one time the ethanol would would what it would do is it would and basically what it would do is it would deteriorate your fuel lines. Now I heard that it had to be sitting for a while, so one guy told me, well, as long as you run the fuel all the way out and then put new fuel in it, the non-ethanol, then you'll be okay, because the ethanol doesn't stay in there long enough to deteriorate the hoses. But I did have another mechanic tell me that the new outboards now have the new hoses that don't create that problem. What it was is the fuel lines on the inside were getting deteriorated, and then the stuff that was flaking off was getting into your fuel injectors and causing them to plug up and giving you all kinds of problems with it. But I had no choice. I needed fuel. They didn't have, nobody out of the 3 marinas I went to, none of them had non-ethanol fuel. So I went ahead and filled up one tank only, thinking I'll go down the road and pick up fuel later on. I did end up staying at a different place after I got close to the Chesapeake Bay, and they had a good price on fuel. They had it at, I think, like $500 or $5.25 or 26 cents. So I decided to go ahead and load up and fill up my tanks there. Turns out when I got there, yeah, they had a good price, but it was also ethanol gas. So I needed to put fuel, or else I wasn't going to be able to start the trip. So I went ahead and loaded up both tanks, and I even got the spare tank that I'm carrying and filled that one up too, just in case I was going to need it. Here we are, leaving Norfolk, getting close to, I had just finished picking up the fuel here, and so I decided to go ahead and take off and try and find a place close by the Chesapeake Bay to stay the night. And then once again, as you can see, here's all these huge ships sitting out here, and they're interesting to see, and there's so many different types of ships that they had. So but I guess once you've seen 1 or 2 of them, that's it. You're gonna see them all. Basically, there's an aircraft carrier there on the left side. So once I saw a few of them, then for me it was okay. Well, let's move on and let's go ahead and try and get out of here. Here is, as I was heading out, and you can see right in front of me, there's 2 more three actually. There was three of the Navy ships there on the left side, and those are the ones that open up from the back, and they unload the cargo or load cargo. I remember I was on board a what they call an LSD ship, and that thing carried Amtrak uh, in its hull, and then we would get on board the Amtrak while it's still in the ship, and then they would open up the gate, which would flood the area, and then allow us to pull out from the back end. And normally these Amtraks would hold about a platoon of men in it with full gear and ready to go. we did we did go from Norfolk, Virginia, on what they called a 6-month med cruise, which we bounced around on this boat here, or a ship, not a boat. We bounced around on a ship for 6 months and basically traveled to the Virgin Islands, the Bahamas, Puerto Rico. When we were in Puerto Rico, they have an island out there called the island of Viega, where we actually do exercises, and they have a live ammo field out there where we shoot actual live rounds and target practice and all of that. So the Puerto Ricans are not that crazy about us being there, mainly because they're farmers, and all the noise that we make with firing live rounds and all of that, it scares their animals and everything. So they weren't very happy that we're there. Of course, Puerto Rico gets quite a bit of money from the Marine Corps to allow us to go ahead and do these exercises and everything over there to train in that island. But the locals there don't like it. And they actually, that island is pretty much remote. You see very little cars out there. Most of the time you see all these guys out there on horses, and they have animals out there. They have cows, they have goats, they have, they raise chickens and all of this other stuff on the farms that they have. So I kind of understand, why they wouldn't like us there. But hey, as long as they said we can go ahead and do it, we went ahead and did it. But that was just one of our stops that we did on our 6-month med cruise. And basically, what a 6-month med cruise is you're just bobbing out there in the water on these ships. In the event that something should happen in that area, there's a ship close. Okay. And we do this, or the military does this, all over the world. Anywhere in the world, we can have a ship within 2 or 3 days. We can have a ship anywhere in the world, mainly because a lot of them are out there. Again, the Navy's not going to tell you where all these ships are, or what route they take, or where they're at now. But there's always ships out there, ready to go. No matter where in the world something should happen, we can have a ship there fairly quick. So and I would imagine after a ship spends a year or 2 years out at sea, it probably does have to come in for retrofit and repairs and maintenance and everything else that has to be done on it. And for some reason that somebody thought, okay, let's do Norfolk. So I've gone ahead and fueled up, and I'm on my way out already. It'll probably be another 45 minutes, maybe an hour before I get to Chesapeake. Since Norfolk, Virginia is right in the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay, I wasn't very far away from it. And what I wanted to do was just to be able to tie up and check the weather and check my map and see what route I was going to go ahead and take, and make sure I had everything covered. As I said, Chesapeake Bay is a very big bay. It's a big body of water, And even though, some people say, well, it's no big deal. Well, it is a big deal. It can get pretty rough out there, and it doesn't take a whole lot of wind uh, for the wakes to start picking up. So I knew that when I started the crossing, or not the crossing, but actually just going up to Chesapeake Bay, uh, that I was gonna probably have to pull over sooner or later and just take it easy, let the day go by, and then start the next day, depending on weather permitting. Um, Most of the time, in the first things in the morning is the best time to cruise. I found that out that it's the winds are not blowing as hard, the wakes are not very big, and you pretty much can fly. It's once you get past 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, right around that time frame is if the weather's going to pick up, then that's when it starts to pick up. Uh, so I figured I'd travel 4 hours a day. So if I leave, let's say 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, I only travel till about 12 or 1 o'clock, sometimes even 2 o'clock, depending on where I want to get to. But it makes it a lot easier if you take off as soon as you can in the morning. I normally, by the time I get up, uh, when I have a hatch that's and by and right on top of the V berth where I sleep, and so that hatch, I mean, once the sun starts coming up or daylight starts coming up, it kind of shines light into the V berth, and it kind of wakes me up and it lets me know, okay, it's getting ready to be daylight here. Uh, I think last night when I got up, it was like somewhere like in the reference of like 5:45 in the morning. Uh, so I went ahead and got up and washed up and everything, and then I had some cereal with milk and a banana, which is my basic breakfast. Uh, I carry that because it's a lot easier to do that than to have to cook eggs or something else like that. Uh, and it's quick, so I can go ahead and hurry up, have my breakfast, and start my engine and take off. Uh, Here we are heading toward the end of Norfolk right here, and we're getting very close to the mouth. Uh, right over there toward the left part, as you see the end there, you can kind of see a bridge. Well, that bridge right there is basically where uh, uh, the bay starts. And that bridge actually goes over the water, and then it doesn't go very far, and then it actually goes down under the water, and there's a tunnel that they build across the Chesapeake Bay. So uh, it's a long tunnel. It takes it a long time to get. Once you're in there, you can't turn around and come back. It's only a one way. So once you're in there, you ain't got a choice. You have to go all the way across the bay, and then once you're out at the other end, if you want, then you can turn around and come back. For some reason, you had to return. Uh, but I asked the guy that lived in the area there while I was on tied up waiting. I asked the guy about that, and I asked him. I said, "Well, is there any water that comes in and out of this tunnel?" And he says, "Oh yeah." He says, "While you're driving, you can see water coming in from the sides." And I said, "A lot of water?" And he said, "Well, not a lot, but it's in a lot of places." He says it's not just one little short or one little stream here, and that's about it. No, there's a lot of little streams. He said, and he says, but it's all that water is actually goes into a drainage ditch or something that they have, and then it gets pumped right back out. Uh, so uh, it can't flood. That's what I'm saying, or what he was telling me. It's just doesn't flood. But my thinking is, you have a lot of pressure. Uh, on this tunnel that's being inserted from all the water that's above it. And if it's leaking, it would kind of give you a feeling that, what's to stop this thing from, blowing up and then all of a sudden have a catastrophe, like flood, the whole tunnel gets flooded. You can't get out of it once you're in it. That, like I said, you can't turn around and head back the other way, because it only works one way. So you have to think, once you're in there, if something should have happened, you're pretty much done. There's not a whole lot you can do. And here I am turning up and getting ready to just go ahead and find me a spot where to tie up. I'm going to have to get closer to the shoreline. These big rigs, that rig that you see to the right as I'm going by here, that rig is actually attached to some pipes that go to the land, and then in the land there's huge tanks down there, and those tanks actually have natural gas. So the ships come and tie up to these things over here, and they tie it up, and then these things come down and hook up to the boat, and it fills the boats up with natural gas, and then it takes off once it's full. There was 2 or 3 of these built in Chesapeake Bay. This is one of them right here. And like I said, we're getting close to the bay here, so I'm starting to try and find me a place to stay overnight, and probably have to run inland somewhere. As you can see, it's starting to look like the bay. It's pretty wide, pretty open, and it's starting to get to the point where the water's starting to pick up a little bit. The winds have already picked up, just because now you don't have any land blocking the wind now. You're basically going out into open water. But I did notice on my GPS that there's a couple of there were oh, excuse me. I did notice there was a couple creeks and a little cove on one side, which is where I'm heading to. I just got to get there before I get to that bridge that you can see over there toward the left. But this is pretty much the end of my day here. I'm going to tie up, and then tomorrow morning I'll start on the Chesapeake Bay. Don't know how long it's going to take me to cross, but I would imagine it's not going to be done in a day. But this is the end of it, and I'll go ahead and post again. The next one will be the Chesapeake Bay. Goodbye.